Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome back to 7th Street. The Twilight Zone is a show that needs no introduction. It's a classic. It's quite possibly the greatest television show of all time. Beneath its goofy science fiction exterior lies truth and wisdom, all from the mind of the great Rod Serling. Not only is The Twilight Zone my personal favorite anthology show, it's also one of my top 5 favorite shows, period. Even if you've never seen the show before, you feel like you sort of know about it and some of its more popular episodes. It's forever ingrained into our pop culture. The creature on the wing of the plane, the killer doll, the boy who sends people into the cornfield. But what about those lesser-known episodes of Twilight Zone? Well, why don't we take a look at 7th Street Productions' top 5 underrated Twilight Zone episodes.
Who are we? You are obsolete.
Who is it? Who's there? Hello?
My name is Doggy Tina, and I'm going to kill you.
I'm a mannequin. That's what I am. I'm a
I
mannequin.
know we're being stalked.
Incredible race of giants here. Race of giants.
Just over that rim there, about 100 yards.
This aircraft has gone back into time.
You're 10 years old again, Pip. How come you're 10 years old
All
again?
the time I need and all the time I want. Time.
Look!
Time.
Look, I swear it isn't me! I swear it
You had no dream, Captain.
It's a cookbook. When, nurse? When will I take the bandages off?
I believe you're going my way.
Number 5. Nick of Time. Will people ever outgrow their superstitions? Probably not. Don Carter, played by William Shatner, and his girlfriend are newlyweds on a road trip across America. When they begin to experience some car trouble, the couple stops over in a quiet little town for some help from the local mechanic. While waiting, the two decide to have lunch at a local diner where they find a curious little 1-cent fortune-telling machine.
Let's ask him something else. He really came through on that one.
At first, everything is whimsical and amusing, but things soon turn dark when Don starts to find himself obsessed with the little paper fortunes and develops a sort of fixation on the what if.
Are we going to live in the East? Are we going to live in the West? Are we going to live in this country?
Don, let's go.
No.
When the two lovers are almost hit by an oncoming car, Don begins to completely lose it and demands that they not leave town until the machine lets them. Only through the love and confidence of his wife does Don finally find the courage to hop in the car and leave the little town behind forever. The twist at the end of this episode shows another couple also stuck in the same rat race of despair, asking the machine if they're allowed to leave today. We all know that Shatner was the lead in probably the most famous episode of Twilight Zone, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, but it seems that most forget that his first episode was actually Nick of Time. For this reason alone, it's well worth checking out.
You mean something will happen to us? If you move soon. Should we stay in here until 3 o'clock? There's no question about it. Every answer seems to fit.
Number 4. 2. Maybe we can get along after all. A nuclear holocaust wipes out life in a major metropolitan city. As Mr. Serling states in the opening monologue, this story takes place 100 years from now. Or maybe sooner. Perhaps it already happened 2 million years ago. All that's left of mankind after the destruction of the bomb are 2 soldiers from opposing armies, an English-speaking man and a foreign woman. They begin this episode continuing to shoot at one another as if the war still means something, but by the end, the one-time rivals now find love and companionship in one another. This is a great little Cold War fable. It inspires hope and a belief in a brotherhood of man.
Hear ye, hear ye! Know ye by these present that I do hereby declare peace upon the entire world!
If this episode is remembered at all, it's usually because of its young cast of Charles Bronson and Elizabeth Montgomery, who went on to be megastars in the industry. But 2 is much better than that. It's a beautiful little post-apocalyptic love story. Check it out.
There's no longer any reason for us to fight. There are no longer any armies, only rags of various colors. There are no more boundaries, governments, or noble causes. Therefore, no reason to fight.
Number 3, Third from the Sun. Are we really near the end, or is this just the beginning? Third from the Sun is a lesson in how to build tension. It's truly Twilight Zone at its very best. 2 families of government employees plan to steal a spaceship to escape an impending nuclear holocaust.
It's coming. It's coming probably within 48 hours.
Our destination now. Right there.
How far?
11 million miles.
Where this episode really shines is in the family having to plan out their escape while dealing with their government co-worker who suspects that they might be planning on flying the coop. As the family narrowly escapes the clutches of the police and the missiles hurling towards them, we learn that our cast of characters are not American. They're not even Earthlings.
Guess what, bitch?
It's revealed that our heroes are using this spaceship that they've stolen to travel millions of miles away to a planet that is third from the sun and can sustain life.
Ahead lies a place called Earth, the third planet from the sun.
This is one that you really just need to see for yourself. Like I said, it's incredibly tense, and you actually feel quite a lot for the characters, despite it only being 20-odd minutes. The dialogue is also really great. In my opinion, some of the most memorable lines of any Twilight Zone episode.
It's coming, boy. It's really coming, and a big one, too. While we're talking here, I bet the military's getting all set.
Number 2, A Quality of Mercy. We are them, and they are us. Some of the best episodes of The Twilight Zone deal with World War II, either the aftermath with the racism towards Japanese Americans and soldiers dealing with the mental scars of battle, or stories set in the battlefield itself. This is no doubt due to the fact that writer-creator Rod Serling served in the Marines during the war and fought in the Island Hop campaign. It's here that Rod became disillusioned with the concept of war and violence and made it his life goal to create something like the Twilight Zone, something that speaks out against the injustices of man.
The something he looks for and finds is in a sewer. In his own twisted and distorted lexicon, he calls it faith, strength, truth.
A Quality of Mercy is 100% the reason why this show was created. On August 6th, 1945, the last day of World War II, a platoon of beaten down and worn out American soldiers spot a unit of Japanese soldiers hiding in a cave. Not willing to wait until the official ceasefire, an eager and aggressive lieutenant orders his men to attack despite protests from the platoon.
What's your pleasure, Lieutenant? How many men have to die before you're satisfied? Offhand, I'd say all of them. No matter who they are or where they are, if they're the enemy, they get it. First day of the war or last day of the war, they get it.
It's then that the bloodthirsty lieutenant finds himself transported back to 1942 and now in the body of a Japanese soldier whose commander echoes the same war hawk mentality about attacking an American unit that they've cornered in the very same cave.
No. No. What happened to me? What's going on? What happened?
The lesson here is a very important one. I think that Mr. Serling is suggesting that we would be a lot better off if the whole world could see each other as human beings and not as an enemy that has to die just to justify the ambitions of our leaders. It's really easy, even easier these days with the advent of social media, to not even see one another as humans with real emotions. In my opinion, A Quality of Mercy is the type of thing that should be shown and studied in school or something like that. It's an important message, one that needs to be heard.
Look at them. They're in there, holed up in that cave, beaten, sick, starved. And yet there's no one in there to tell them that the war's over for them. Those poor guys.
Number 1, The Shelter. It doesn't take long for humanity to fall apart. Not just one of the most underrated episodes, The Shelter is one of the best episodes, period. It's almost just as relevant today as it was in the early 60s. Just ask the people hoarding toilet paper and fist-fighting in the aisles at your local grocery store. Dr. Bill Stockton has prepared himself very well for the eventuality of a nuclear strike. He's built a bomb shelter for himself, his wife, and his child, while his neighbors, on the other hand, have done nothing.
What about the hammering at all hours of the night?
Ah, yes. The good doctor's bomb shelter.
During a dinner party, there is an emergency announcement on the radio that an unidentified object has been sighted en route to the U.S., and they may be under attack.
4 minutes ago, the President of the United States made the following announcement. Both our distant early warning line and ballistics early warning line reported radar evidence of unidentified flying objects flying due southeast.
As the Stocktons prepare to lock themselves in their shelter, their neighbors that used to call themselves friends panic, first asking to be let into the shelter with them, then demanding, and eventually, a violent altercation breaks out amongst them, exposing each other's hate, resentment, and racist attitudes towards one another. As time ticks away and the end draws closer, the neighbors break down the door of Bill's bomb shelter in the all-too-common act of, if I can't have it, no one can. They do this just in time for an announcement to come over the radio, informing them all that it was a false alarm.
Previously unidentified objects have now been definitely ascertained as being satellites.
Now seeing each other for who they truly are, the neighbors wonder if they can ever go back to normal.
We were spared a bomb tonight, but I wonder if we weren't destroyed, even without it.
With all this coronavirus craziness of panic buying, finger pointing, and basically, well, people devolving into rats, scratching and clawing at each other just for the privilege of hand sanitizer and frozen chicken, I can't help but think that The Shelter is a Twilight Zone episode that everyone needs to see right now, as Rod so perfectly puts it in the closing narration.
No moral, no message, no prophetic tract. Just a simple statement of fact. For civilization to survive, the human race has to remain civilized. Tonight's very small exercise in logic from the Twilight Zone.